We have vehicles that can run off water, free fuel and environmentally friendly. Greedy globalists are stopping us from using this free technology though. Well, what? Hello, I'm EVM and welcome to a video which hopefully will respond to some of the ultra negative, almost insulty comments that, well, not just me, but every kind of EV related channel gets on a daily basis. So I'm not talking like the crackpot type stuff that I just read out there, you know, the car that runs off just water, although that does come up surprisingly often. I'm talking about the things that people see as a major negative, maybe Daily Mail level stuff, that gets posted in the channel. People go, oh, EVM's just posted another video, I think I'll watch this, and then get angry at it so I can post up more things which mean I can express my hatred at what he does and anything related to electric vehicles. Have you just thought of maybe just not watching what you don't like? I mean, yeah, just putting it out there. Things like cars always catch on fire, the Cobalt argument about sending kiddies down the mine, things like that. Some of it is in the mainstream media. So I can understand why people would read it and maybe even believe it. I'm not saying you're an idiot if you believe this. I'm saying 2 seconds of Google would have told you that what you're posting up on every video I do is complete and total rubbish. Honk. A lot of crap. Complete and total shit. I fear I may go off on a little bit of a rant in this video, so I apologise in advance. I wonder why no mention of fire, so you know what, I'm gonna need something else. I'm gonna need a drink just to get through this. Some beer. If you fancy some free beers, that's exactly what my good friends at Beer 52 are offering you. Simply go to beer52.com/electric and cover the meagre cost of $5.95 to claim your free case. Each month they send their members a case of unique and varied beers from a different part of the world. And that's why I quite like this. It's about trying different beers from around the world, and if you're a bit of a beer connoisseur, then, well, you might try something you've never had before. Like people who like cheeses from different places. Ooh, the Ferment magazine for a little bit of light reading. Snacks too! Oh, the thought of everything. They spanned 40 different countries from 5 different continents. I'm really pouring this badly. And I think that's going to give you a pretty decent flavour of the world's beers. Oh my God, what have I done? I'm an amateur. If you don't like dark beer, then they do light boxes as well. There's also a couple of snacks to enjoy with your beer. And even after all that, if you're still unsatisfied, oh yeah, that's good. Then you can simply pause or cancel at any time. beer52.com/electric to claim your free case now. That's beer52.com/electric. So we'll look at some of these comments then. Right, I wonder why no mention of fire services all over the UK buying specialist equipment to extinguish the ever-increasing number of EV fires. First thing with that, there's an ever-increasing number of EVs, and therefore logically, if some catch on fire, there will be an ever-increasing number of fires. Apparently, and if you start the sentence with the word apparently, you can say anything you like after that. Apparently, some of these fires have been designated by insurers as caused by design faults and claims have been refused. Seems to me that many EV buyers are more money than sense and fail to ensure that their insurance covers them for fire under any circumstances. Yes, you're right. When a couple of weeks ago, renewed our Tesla's insurance, they basically went, yeah, you're covered, no problems at all, even though we're aware of the design flaw that means they can just spontaneously combust. And this is something that it really does come up an awful lot. So why don't we look into that a second, shall we? This is from an interview with Forbes and the CTO of Thatcham Research. And he said that electric vehicles generally have a lower risk of fire than fossil fuel vehicles, but the pool data is currently too small. Our latest research indicates that the risk of fire for all types of EV remains less likely than for ICE. This is also reflected in the safety testing we conduct in the UK on behalf of Euro NCAP, where despite the robust impacts to the front and particularly the sides of the vehicle where the battery is most vulnerable, there have been no resultant thermal events. An EV has far fewer moving parts. Friction between components can be a regular cause of fires, leading to overheating. There is no flammable liquid such as petrol being pumped through the car from the fuel tank, usually at the back, to the engine at the front, and there is no hot exhaust to encourage combustion. Without the extensive cooling systems provided by the radiator and many litres of coolant constantly circulating through the engine, a petrol car would overheat and potentially catch fire within minutes. Now, I find this very fascinating. Imagine if we flip it around for a second, and electric vehicles have been around for decades and petrol cars are very new. Let's just pretend. What we would have is people going, hang on a minute, whoa. So instead of battery electric, we are going to put highly combustible liquid fuel beneath the rear seats, which is then going through a pipe to the front of an engine past a very hot exhaust, pumping out fumes which, if you were in a closed garage, would literally kill you. And then it's going to ignite that liquid inside the car's structure to move pistons up and down to make us go forward. It would happen, wouldn't it? If we reversed everything, that is what these type of people would be saying. It sounds bonkers when you think about it, of how a petrol or diesel car operates. US-based insurance referral website Auto Insurance analysed data from the US National Transportation Safety Board and Bureau of Transportation Statistics. Per 100,000 vehicle sales, only 25.1 on average experience a fire, and only 52 electric car fires have been recorded. If we look at a standard combustion engine, a standard ICE car, if you will, that's not 25 out of 100,000, it's 1,529.9 out of 100,000. 25, 1,500, which is the bigger number? So where does this electric fires just catch on fire all the time thing come from? I mean, seriously, I would love to know. So you now look at the power grid question that comes up again, pretty much every hour. Eric here has put, no one has considered the load on our power grid. No one has considered. You're right, Eric, you're the first. No one has considered the load on our power grid, or where does the power come from? Mostly I see it comes from coal that we burn to produce electricity. Right, so we look at the UK's power mix. Coal is responsible for 1.5% apparently in 2022. 1.5. Now, a decade ago it's probably at 30-40%. So I can see where this started, but again, a 2-second Google will tell people that it doesn't come from coal at all. Not in this country. And this is a UK channel, so that's what I'm concentrating on. Now, 38.5% comes from gas. That is a fossil fuel. But overall, if you include nuclear as a clean fuel, and I personally consider it as a vital part of the mix, then actually we've never had a cleaner grid. And that's a big thing, isn't it? Because the cleaner the grid gets, the cleaner an electric vehicle gets. Whereas a petrol diesel car will always be the same dirtiness. If you think electric is viable, you're all fools. Brand new electric cars with no miles on it have a bigger carbon footprint than a diesel car with 100,000 miles on it, and no children had to die or suffer to mine the components to produce the battery. Most of the electricity to run the car is produced by coal or gas. So again, we've kind of touched on this, but that leads me nicely into the old Cobalt argument. Batteries have cobalt, therefore a lot of it comes from the Congo, and they have a lot of these children down mine issues. It's a genuine thing. So therefore batteries are evil. Ignoring the fact that my phone, my laptop, my iPad and most of the things in my house have lithium-ion batteries that contain cobalt, I'm going to ignore that and pick this out as a major negative about electric vehicles. Also going to ignore the fact that cobalt has been reduced in terms of the amount in an electric vehicle's battery significantly over the years because it's very expensive. They don't want to put cobalt in it. And I believe Tesla's production at the moment is something like half of all their cars have zero cobalt in them. My home battery downstairs, the Give Energy one, no cobalt in it. So things are getting better, although there are still significant negatives around that. That is not in doubt at all. That is something that nobody has ever said it doesn't exist. So again, this also brings up the, who are you arguing against? Who has put a video or an article out there saying electric vehicles have zero impact on the environment? Who is saying this? Keeping with cobalt though, how many people are aware of the fact that cobalt is used in oil refinery? It is used as I think it's a desulfuring agent when producing, well, fuel for your combustion engine car, and has been for many years. Why has nobody ever picked up on this as a major negative when it comes to buying a petrol car? Why do I not see that on any comment section of any traditional car review? Well, what about all the kiddies you're sending down the mines by buying petrol and diesel? I mean, it's pretty hypocritical, isn't it? Which is exactly what you accuse electric vehicle owners of being all the time. You think you're green and fluffy, but your car's not clean. A, who said they were clean? And B, look at around your house. Look at what fuel uses. It's the same stuff. What about oil? Like that has no impact. There's never been any oil spills or fires on rigs or I don't know, wars that are pretty much solely related to oil. Now, again, I'm not an environmentalist. Oil and petrol and cars and combustion engines have changed the world. Look at all the fantastic things we've got because of oil. And it's not just petrol and transport and things like that. There's all sorts of stuff that comes from a very magical liquid. I'm not saying we should get rid of it. We live in the modern world and we need resources. So if we accept that fact for a second, which is another argument, then it's not immensely evil, but it can be used in far less quantities by changing to something that at least can come from a renewable source. Once petrol has been burnt in your petrol engine car or my petrol engine car, it's gone. It's the very definition of non-renewable. Electricity can be made from renewable sources that will never run out. Norway has proven this fact. Most of their cars are full electric vehicles. Their grid, I think, is the cleanest in the world, or at least very close to it. So they've proven that this is possible. We just need to get there and rely on our government to get us. Oh no, they're right. Lithium's another one. Now, this is something that seems to crop up all the time in terms of we're going to run out, we haven't got enough to move everything into a full electric world. Global lithium reserves are estimated at over 14 million tonnes, and depending on who you ask, the amount of lithium needed to meet current goals is somewhere between 0.5 and 1.3 million tonnes. Technological breakthroughs in the sector mean that lithium can be extracted more sustainably from brines in addition to increasing yields, while the development of lithium recycling industry is a foregone conclusion. Essentially, if someone can make money out of it, they'll do it. If they can find oil and get it from underneath the ocean, they'll find a way of doing it. While lithium reserves are not the problem to the immediate and long-term needs for low carbon mobility and power, there is one question that does not get asked nearly as much. Can we meet the demand with current infrastructure? And this is the main, I think, confusion of it. People would read we're running out of lithium as we don't have enough. It'd be like me saying we don't have enough oil to carry on driving around in petrol cars. Unfortunately, battery capacity can be built much faster than lithium projects. The lack of investment in lithium capacity over the last 5 years will extend the supply shortage. So again, it's not a case of the earth hasn't got enough, even if you ignore recycling, it's a case of we can't get it quick enough to meet the demands. Now don't get me wrong, this is skimming over an infinitely complicated argument. But my point is, we're not running out of lithium any more than we're running out of oil. I mean, you do see the irony. Oh no, we haven't got enough raw materials for this battery malarkey. So let's go back to oil, something that we've got lots of. We don't, we've just got very, very good at getting it. This I do like, especially the reply. Sitting on a high-powered battery and 4 motors, even though at most they'll have 2, producing EMF is a great sterilisation device amongst other ailments. The reply is brilliant though. Tell me you failed physics at school without telling me. It's like the windmill one. Well, why don't they just put a windmill on top of the car that will generate electricity as you're driving along? Fixed. Now to my cousins in America, please accept my apologies about what I'm going to say. This is not an insult, this is just, I've noticed a pattern in my analytics and what people say. I mean, this one is off Twitter, for example. It's a little comic sketch. Your electric car needs a battery, that'll be $15,000, and a guy, it's basically saying batteries at the moment are very expensive to replace because there isn't a used market, there isn't spare parts flying around from millions of cars being scrapped or anything like that. That hasn't come around yet, so That's ultimately why they're expensive, not because they will always be that expensive. How it was 5 years ago or even today isn't how it will be in 10 years time or 20 years time or 30 years time. This why you will never see used electric car lots, even though they exist right now. You idiot climate scam dumbass supporters of communism and tyranny. Now, I didn't realise that Putin, Russia essentially, was such a big fan of electric vehicles that owning one means you're a supporter of communism. The pattern I've noticed is that an awful lot of this communist or just EV hate from America does come from people with Trump flags. Can anyone in America tell me why this correlation exists? What is it about Trump supporters and calling something bad communism? Even though Tesla, the probably biggest, or one of the biggest, electric vehicle manufacturers, is an American company. Are they communists? Is that what it is? You would think an American would want an American company to succeed. It's very perplexing from outside of the US. Now let's get on to the "this is what happened to me" comment that ultimately you can blatantly tell is not true. And they've probably never even driven an EV, let alone owned one. Like this fella here. My experience of using an electric car in the winter is shocking. See what he's done there, he's put shocking because it's electric. Had just over 100 miles on the clock, I assume he means range, to do my visits. After 10 minutes of driving, by having the radio on, the sat-nav, the heating and the window wipers, it dropped to 25 miles. Had to switch off the heating, the radio, the sat-nav to ensure I got back. Now, what he's saying is, in winter, my car lost 75% of its range. This is the car told me I had 100 miles and then it went to 25. Now, we all know that heaters in electric vehicles are way more efficient in terms of how much energy they waste, but it comes from the battery and that's where you get your range from. So if you use your heater, of course, you lose range. That is irrefutable. In fact, all of the studies I've read, and there's been lots, including my own, have said that you will lose between 22 and 27% of range in winter if you've got the heating on and it's very cold, for example. So if your car said, I have 200 miles, you'd have about 150 in that type of environment. But it's this bit that's the tell. The radio on, the sat-nav on, the window wipers. In a petrol or diesel car, you have a 12-volt battery, don't you, that runs all the electrics. Ironically, you're reliant on batteries in a petrol diesel car. Now in an electric car, that 12-volt battery still exists. It does the same job. It runs the infotainment system, the wipers, the sat-nav, the radio. So it doesn't come from the traction battery. However, most EVs, because none of them have an alternator, most EVs would top up the 12-volt from the traction battery. So I guess you could argue that the sat-nav and headlights and stuff like that do deplete range. Now think about this for a second. An electric vehicle, let's take mine, it has a 50 kilowatt hour battery, give or take. The average UK household uses, I think, between 8 and 10 kilowatt hours of energy per day. That's the entire house, oven, lights, TVs, everything. So a car, when it's full, my car anyway, would have roughly 5 days worth of energy to run a house. So do you really think running a sat-nav, which in reality would lose you about 4 foot of range, would have such an effect? The heater would drop it a bit and everything else wouldn't make a difference that you could even measure in the real world. Now, I did a video a couple of weeks ago saying if you've got any, things you'd like me to look at in terms of EV craziness that clearly isn't true, send them in. And by far, by a huge margin, the thing that people sent me the most was another YouTube channel called The Mac Master. If you're watching this, I've only watched a couple of videos, so I'm a bit, I haven't gone through all what appears to be 30 videos, all anti-EV stuff on what is a channel about food. But if you're watching this, Mr. Mac Master, then I'd love to get together to have an actual chat, face to face. We'll have a discussion about EVs. Some of what you say is absolutely bob on. The infrastructure is not good enough, but a lot of it is just complete exaggeration, not true, or generated for views. But this one here, I took my electric car for its first ever service and was shocked. Prepare yourself for this. Lots of capital letters, lots of Daily Mail style clickbaity stuff. which ironically does work on YouTube, so I guess I can't really go against that one. But ultimately, this isn't about electric vehicles costing a lot to maintain or service. If you've got an EV, if you're thinking about getting one, look how much it's cost me. No, you bought a Porsche Taycan, and it's how much Porsches are charging to service a non-really serviceable vehicle. 750 quid, I think it was. So you've bought one of the most expensive EVs you can get and are surprised at the cost. And just as a comparison, my regular maintenance of my Tesla Model 3 over the last 3 years, excluding tyres, comes to zero. Nothing. There has been no service cost at all. It's not free, it's just not needed. This one is my favourite. I nearly died and froze to death in my electric car. The evil truth about electric cars. Again, lots of capital letters, and as I can understand it, it's about Food is the Channel. Did a video about EVs, anti-EVs, that got lots of views, and then ultimately decided to do more of them because it gets lots of views, not because it's true. It's not a case of the electric car nearly killed him because, well, it didn't, did it? You were surrounded by hotels, supermarkets, restaurants, and various other stuff in the middle of a town centre, so no. It's man sets off without enough range, so therefore would have to charge on the public charging infrastructure. Then when the snow comes down, thinks driving across the Peak District is the best way home, and relies on a charger which, according to ZapMap, which he said he checked, hadn't worked for 3 weeks, and then didn't work, and then got stuck in a high-performance rear-wheel drive Taycan with no snow tyres on. That's what happened there. It's nothing to do with the fact it's an electric vehicle. It's the fact that you put yourself in that situation. I've driven 25,000 miles a year for 8 years in EVs that have do about half the range of that. I haven't used pixie dust and magic to do that. I've just used a little bit of common sense. I haven't thought, no, the infrastructure should work, so I'm going to drive there, and then when I find it's let me down again, and that bit you're right on, then I could do another video about it. If you're watching this, Mr. MacMaster, I'd love to have a chat with you. You don't seem to be that far from me. We're both up north, so let's get together at some point in the future and just have a bit of a confab, really. People post stuff up that they've either invented or not researched in the slightest all the time. And I don't mind the occasional one. We all do that. I do that. But when someone's doing it on the 10th video in a row with the same comment, which is clearly not true or even close to it, it does get a little bit wearing. As I said earlier, EVs are far from perfect. The infrastructure is definitely not perfect, which is why I've done several videos recently saying the nearest 10 chargers to me, 6 of them aren't working. This is not good enough. That's not a problem of the car, it's a problem of the councils, to an extent the government and the people that are in charge of some of the networks. So why do we put some of this effort into having a go at our MP, our councillors, the networks? I don't mind complaining about EVs, but at least complain about the right thing. EVs nearly killed me. No, it didn't. It didn't even come close. Imagine if I did that. Well, I turned my petrol car on, my garage door was shut, and it nearly killed me. If I hadn't have opened it, I'd have suffocated to death. Can you imagine if I did that video? I'd get laughed off YouTube. But it would get views. So anyway, I think I'm done. Thank you to beer52.com for sponsoring the channel and for giving me beer. Thanks for watching. See you soon.